Good morning. Can everyone hear me?
Morning.
Excellent. You're all wide awake. You've had your coffee, you've had your breakfast. Wonderful. So really, this community, as you've already heard, it's about being open, collaborative, practical. We're not just here to talk about technology, but we're actually here to explore how methods like AWP, digital platforms, smart factories, and better information can fundamentally change how we do things in this industry. So today we're going to hear from leaders in major contractors, owners, technology providers. Each brings a different perspective, and together the story is clear. Industrialized construction is moving from concept to reality. So I'd encourage you to think about what's directly transferable to the work that you do. What can you take away from today and actually apply in your area so that we can move the entire industry forward? With that, I'd like to welcome Chris Dill onto the stage. Chris? So Chris is CIO of Kiewit Technology Group. He leads over 600 professionals. He has driven Kiewit's bold digital transformation with the aim of a 60% productivity improvement across major projects. Quite remarkable. Were those lights supposed to switch off?
Yeah.
Okay. No power outage right now. Chris, please go ahead.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. I'm going to grab the clicker. Thank you. So I think I could spend my time talking about just the things that were mentioned in the first 10 or 15 minutes here. Max, appreciate your thoughts on mental health and your help in general getting me here and all set. The company I work for, Kiewit, that I'm going to talk a lot about today, is part of the Association of General Contractors focus on mental health in North America. We have a program called Under the Hard Hat that takes that very seriously, and we're trying to make the same gains in North America that you all are here. So, but I'm here today to talk about our journey over the last 15 years and why we took that journey. I'm not here to preach at you about anything that I think you must do. But I do hope that maybe you'll learn some things from our journey that you can take back and apply, and maybe think about a few things that you probably should do if you haven't already. So we'll take you through that digital journey of the last decade and a half, and then I'm going to tell you where we're headed from here, and what I think some of these things like AI mean to our company and probably to the industry. And also, I'm going to weave in a bit about how our technology journey has enabled things like AWP and industrialization to come into our projects in a significant way, and why I don't think that would have been entirely possible had we not undertaken our digital journey. So I'm going to take you through that whole story. Happy to take questions at the end if there's a couple of minutes. I'm certainly happy to talk during break or during lunch or whenever you'd like to catch me. So I do want to thank Stuart for finding me at Digital Construction Week in London in June. I did effectively this same presentation at that event, not knowing particularly if that was going to land or not. And I had an hour-and-a-half line afterwards of people who wanted to talk about what I had presented. Some wanted to debate it, some wanted to congratulate me, and I'll take both when the time comes today, certainly from this audience as well. So tell you a little bit about the company that I work for. So Kiewit is the E&R, so North America's top 400 contractors. Kiewit is ranked number 2 on that list. Almost $17 billion US in revenue, 13,000 staff. Our craft number fluctuates always depending on what our backlog looks like, but about 16,000 full-time self-performed craft on the payroll, and an equipment fleet of almost 35,000, which I think this is still true. I think is second only to the U.S. Army in North America in terms of size of fleet. So we have a significant investment in that area. We're headquartered in Omaha, Nebraska, right out in the middle of the country. if you've been to the U.S. And gone to the West Coast, you've probably just simply flown over Nebraska, but that's where our roots are, and we've stayed in Omaha since 1884. And we are in really every major industry except residential and multifamily. We don't build any of those projects. We do everything else, from mining, oil, gas, chemical, industrial, energy and power, vertical building, infrastructure and road projects, you name it. If it's a large capital project, we're probably interested in building it. But I want to take you back to 2010 because that's when our digital journey began at Kiewit. We were about a $9 billion company at the time, so just more than half of what we are today. You can see some of the statistics at that time. Maybe key in on the 9,100 staff, because that's going to be an important thread as I go through my presentation today. Serving the same industries. The company looked much then as it does today in terms of the depth and breadth of the markets we serve and the services that we provide. And so a couple of important things had happened in the 2008, 9, 10 timeframe. One, Kiewit had made a significant acquisition of a competitor that grew from a revenue and backlog perspective, the company by between 40 and 50%. What that triggered, among other things, was a realization that our homegrown technology, and that was the vast majority of what we ran as a company in 2010, was completely developed in-house and homegrown. Those systems were not going to scale. We had just about maxed out their capabilities in terms of how much work we could run on those, how big a business we could run. And we were going to have to do something, either make a major investment to develop the next generation or look to the commercial market, but we were going to have to do something before our technology collapsed. Equally important, and probably with more foresight, our CEO at the time and our board started to see the things that we now are all dealing with today. They saw projects getting larger. They saw projects getting more complex. They saw projects growing in total dollar value. They saw projects becoming much more technical in nature. And again, there was a belief that if we didn't get serious about technology, that we risked, number one, being left behind, and number two, risked the ability to continue to be profitable. And historically, Kiewit, which is a privately held corporation, had been one of the more profitable companies in the North American construction space. But our job losses had began to grow. Our job losses had become more frequent. Our results had become less predictable, and mostly driven by the fact that the projects that we were undertaking were larger and more complex, and our tools absolutely did not do us any favors in terms of our ability to keep track of where we were at a point in time. We typically closed the books once a month on our projects in 2010, and that was the only moment that we knew if that project was in a good place or a bad place. Other than that, our folks effectively were flying blind from the beginning of the month to the end, and that was absolutely not going to cut it as we started to see projects valued in the billions of dollars. So we needed better tools, and we needed a strategy. What we knew, and I've been watching a debate online about whether or not you believe in a single source of truth, and there's those that disparage that term. I don't know what else to call it if not that, but I think what it represents is just, do you know where you're at a point in time, and do you have systems and data that definitively tell you where your project stands? And that, in the increasingly complex world that we all operate in, needs to probably be minute to minute, hour to hour, not day to day, not week to week, and certainly not month to month. And so Bruce was our CEO at the time, and that was his quote: "We need a single source of the truth for our business." And that was effectively the mantra as we launched into our digital strategy, which began in 2010. So the first wave of digitization at Kiewit was really about digitizing our entire business. And so we knew that doing business on paper was simply not going to cut it anymore. We knew we needed systems that could help us track and calculate important aspects of our business. And so we set about a relatively traditional digitization of our business formally in 2010. So the first thing we did is we identified and developed a strategy. As you can imagine, as a construction company, we like to have plans. And so we put a pretty formal program in place that guided us through that digitization journey. We really knew we wanted to digitize all the way out to the edge on our projects. We wanted to take the paper out of our operations. We wanted to see our folks in the field with mobile devices. Even in 2010, 2011, that was our vision. And we knew that we wanted to capture that data and aggregate it so that we could begin to have that single source of truth about our business. Now, what we didn't have foresight about was what that data might become as an asset later on, and I'll talk more and more about that as I go through. And we certainly didn't know that it was going to become an enabler for AI in the world we stand in today. But we knew that data was the key to having the single source of truth that we looked for. We looked at both a build and a buy strategy. We ultimately landed on a bit of a hybrid, although we had to build much more than we would have liked, quite frankly, because in 2010, 2011, there wasn't what we thought was a sufficient commercial project lifecycle management suite available. And so we bought commercially where we could. We implemented SAP and consolidated all of our back office applications into SAP. And then we built custom solutions to digitize our field operations. The second thing, and this is, depending on where you're at in your digital journey, I would tell you to maybe highlight this as you think about important aspects of taking your business on this journey. We spend a tremendous amount of time on standardization of our data, standard account codes and cost codes, standard and documented workflows, units of measure. Every segment of our business like to measure things different ways. We went through the hard and agonizing work of standardizing all of those things. At the time, again, we thought it was in the name of having a single source of truth that you could compare one unit and division and market to another. What I know today is that was crucially important to set us up to have good, clean, trusted data to do things like data science and analytics and BI and now AI. And so thankfully, we went through this early on, and it was extremely painful. But it was a key component of getting ourselves prepared for what was to come. And finally, I wish we'd have done this better. I would tell you we went through this and learned lots of terrible lessons and took lots of bumps. But having a really strong change management process where you are helping your business through that transformation of, in our case, in the early days, from paper to digital, trusting what those digital tools are telling you, taking folks who had little to no technical knowledge and competency and teaching them how to use those tools was a major lift in our business. It doesn't feel like much today because the young people coming out of school have just grown up with it. Our workforce in 2010 had not, and it was a major lift to get them prepared to live in that world. We implemented a super user program where we trained thousands of our folks, staff, field engineers on how to use those tools so that they were extracting maximum value from the solutions that we were implementing. But this is a key component, I think, of any digital journey, is having a sense of how are you going to take your business through the change management aspect so that you don't break business today while you're preparing your business for tomorrow. So when we were done, this is what our technical landscape looked like. You see SAP at the core, our single source of truth for back office. Hard Dollar was a commercial application at the time that we were able to commercially procure for project controls and estimating. You see the middle tier, commercially available shared solutions for things like scheduling and document control. And then that ring around the outside is how we digitized our business out in the field. Each of those was custom developed applications in-house. Really, really good set of solutions. This took us through this kind of digital chapter in our journey. And really, we started to see the benefits by the time we got to about 2016, 2017. And the way we measured progress, by the way, is in revenue per staff year. Many companies in our industry have tracked that for a long time. It's not perfect. You can get into all kinds of debates and arguments about is it inflation adjusted or not. But we had tracked it for decades, and there was enough reliability in that number that we pinned our productivity tracking against that metric. And so when we reached kind of the end of this first chapter of the journey in 2017, we had actually moved the needle on our revenue per staff year by 10%. We'd been stuck on about $1 million per staff year for probably 3 decades, quite literally. But by the time we got our digital tools implemented, got everybody trained, and got to the point where it was just a part of us doing our business daily, we had moved that needle about 10%, and we're up to $1.1 million per staff year. That accumulated to about $800 million of benefit to our business, which obviously is substantial. I don't care what size company you are. That's real money. 6,300 staff years saved when you calculate that out. And really, what that came down to is we were just simply running our business with relatively fewer people and growing our business with the same numbers of people, rather than always scaling human beings linearly with revenue growth. And so, you can see the challenges and the benefits. I've talked a lot about it, but what this did was this got us out of the starting gate on our digital journey, got our business digitized all the way out to the edge, finally got us off the mark from a productivity perspective and got that curve turned upward, and then set the table for what was to come next. I do want to highlight a project. So towards the end of this kind of first chapter, first phase, if you will, we had a project called Fast Fix Aid in Nashville, Tennessee. That project had been estimated in what I would call traditional means and methods to be about a 3-year project. Huge disruption to traffic, right down through the core of Nashville, Tennessee, in Southeast U.S. And the client was really wrestling with the impact that it was going to have on the community, but the work had to be done. They had to expand roadways. They had to replace bridges. And specifically, our piece of this project was bridge replacement. Also included some railway that we had to deal with. It was a complex project. And the client did not want to take 3 years. And so our digitization, the tools that we had implemented, allowed us to start to take an AWP type of approach to our work and sequence our work in a way that by the time we were done estimating and we won the project, we believed and ended up executing the project in about 7 months. And so I've got a quick video. It's just a time-lapse video of how we did that. But at each of these bridge locations, we were able to move in, sequence the work, and in about 48-hour stretches, tear out the old bridges, put on the new decks, and have traffic back open again. And we did this over and over again throughout the life of this project. So you see they'd come in late in the evening, shut the roadway down, and begin tearing the decking off. Also, the use of modular construction, which we had not done a lot of prior to this project, but those panels were prefabbed off-site, trucked in, and then placed when we had these 48-hour windows. So this customer, which was the Department of Transportation in Tennessee, was thrilled with the outcome. The project was Project of the Year in Tennessee. And I will tell you, we absolutely could not have executed this project in the manner that we did had we not been through our digitization to that point and had the tools capable of helping us prioritize and sequence the work in a way that allowed us to get in and out quickly and get traffic back open again through the city of Nashville. So it's one easy example of what that implementation of technology can do to change how you do business and maybe open up the possibilities of how you execute projects. We simply couldn't have done this 5-7 years earlier. Okay, I want to talk about the next chapter, the second horizon of digitization at Kiewit. So we now had our business completely digitized end to end. We were beginning to collect great data from our business operations, both back office and in the field. And in about 2017, it became apparent that it was time for us to take the next leap forward because, again, projects had grown increasingly complex, more and more expensive from a dollar value. So in 2010, 11, 12, it was relatively rare that we took on a $1 billion project. By 2017, we were taking on $3, $4, $5 billion projects in North America, and with increasingly happening increasingly so. So we knew our tools needed to evolve. We knew we needed to take the next step forward. And so I'm going to tell you what that next chapter, that next horizon was for us. And it really revolved around data-driven operations, taking the data that we'd been gathering for the better part of 7 years through our first iteration of digitization and putting it to work as an asset. The first thing we did is we ended up sunsetting those homegrown field operations and implemented the Innate suite. So you saw Innate is the breakfast sponsor here at this event this morning. Kiewit was an early adopter of the Innate suite. And so we, in a lot of ways, kind of field tested Innate's tools, and certainly at load. We were far and away the biggest customer of Innate at the time, ultimately running our entire backlog on the Innate suite. The reason we implemented Innate was simply because those disconnected applications that had served us for the 7 years prior were not integrated. They didn't share data back and forth. They were all built on different tech stacks. All were heavy client. And it was presenting challenges when it came time to really drive additional productivity, because our folks would have to enter data in one application, close that application out, open up another application, potentially have to enter that data a second time. There was not uniform flow of that data throughout the project lifecycle, and that was causing usability issues, and frankly, it was causing timing delays with our data in terms of our ability to see what was happening. And so it took us about 1.5 years to implement the Innate suite across our business, and for the first time, we had a cloud-based, cloud-native, accessible through a browser, full project lifecycle management solution. And that really opened our eyes fully to what was happening on our projects, minute by minute, hour by hour. We knew exactly what was happening. We could tell down to the operation, is that operation effective and efficient today? And are we making money on that operation today? What about yesterday? What are we going to do tomorrow? We'd never had that kind of visibility before into our field operations. We also began to leverage the data that we had already collected and started to leverage it for some of our early data science endeavors. A key move here for us was we created an organization called Kiewit Data Services. We're not super creative in our naming conventions, by the way. We just put Kiewit in front of everything. But Kiewit Data Services was the first dedicated data organization inside of Kiewit, separate from our technology organization, much more directly aligned to our business, that began to take advantage of data as an asset that we'd been collecting for 7 or 8 years and start to develop analytical data science models that would drive much deeper insights into our business than we had ever had before. We've now deployed 17 analytical models at key points in the project lifecycle, and they effectively act as early warning signals in our business. So everything from when we consider bidding a project, we have an analytical model that, again, creatively we call bid no bid, that pulls in both historical internal data as well as commercially available external data and effectively rates a project on the viability of us winning that project and making money on that project, and gives it a numerical score that says, yes, we should proceed. This is a project that we should probably consider bidding, or no, we should not, don't bother. And it has really narrowed in our ability to focus on what we think will be winning jobs for Kiewit, good jobs for Kiewit, for good customers, and walk away from projects that, quite frankly, we probably would have bid in the past. We might have won, and we may have lost money on those projects. We're doing a much better job of avoidance of those kinds of things. We have an early warning system called Watchdog that, as early as 10% in a project timeline, we can tell if a project is headed for trouble. It looks at something like 80 different data points and will highlight not only the fact that a project has issues, but will tell you where it has issues so that we can go and intervene early and hopefully get that project back on track before it's too late and becomes a loser. And I think I just talked over my third slide here. But, you know, I think probably the key thing here is none of this is possible had we not been gathering data through our solutions, had we not digitized our business 7 or 8 years earlier. That data became a huge asset, and again, is increasingly so with time. Nobody in the industry is going to be able to do data science, and I will argue nobody's going to be able to do AI effectively if you don't have good, clean, trusted data inside your organization. You cannot rely on external data. It's not going to tell you enough about your business. And AI is not magic, contrary to what I think a lot of folks will tell you. It is absolutely, to impact your business, it's going to need to be driven off of your data. And so, again, I wish I could tell you we had some kind of a great epiphany 15 years ago that was going to be the case. We didn't. I think we're lucky to be where we are, but we do have data that's going to make AI a differentiator for us, and I'll talk about that a bit more. But I would tell you, you know, if you haven't started the journey, start as soon as you can, because if you want to leverage things like AI, it's not going to be enough to pull data off the internet and hope it tells you something. So now this is what our ecosystem looks like today. You see the Innate suite at the center. It really is kind of the brain of our operations. We've really moved our ERP and equipment management and procurement more to the edge in terms of solutions, rather than being at the center, which in our first generation, it was kind of SAP, especially, was kind of the brain. And this really represents the entire life cycle of a project and how we manage data and seamlessly flow that data from estimating and bidding on the front end to turnover and commissioning on the back and all points in between. We no longer have to break out to separate applications. We no longer have to enter data twice or three times in different places. The data flows across that bus in the platform seamlessly, and at all times we have a really good sense of what's happening in our business. So by the end of 2024, what did that do for us? Well, we took that revenue per staff year up again to $1.3 million. So we saw another almost 20% productivity gain from these efforts. That was almost $2 billion of impact on our business. And, we've got insights into what's happening on our projects like never before. Those analytical models are in place as early warnings to keep us on track. We're using data as an asset. And by the way, our losses, our job losses, both in number and dollar value, have narrowed as a percent of revenue. They're not zero. We're not perfect. I'm not here to tell you we've solved all of our problems, but they have narrowed. They've narrowed in size. They've narrowed in number. So we've seen good gains there. We've obviously seen our staff productivity increase. We're able to grow our business without growing human capital linearly with it, which is super important. I assume you guys have a tight labor market for engineers and folks in construction like we do in North America. So our ability to grow without having to always add people is huge. And we've seen those gains in the last 7 years. And so, it was a huge, this next 7 years. And by the way, I don't think it's coincidental that these sort of chapters last about 7 years. It seems like that's about the amount of time it takes for us to develop a plan, identify what we want to accomplish, put the technology in place to do it, take the company through the change management and training aspects so everybody knows how to actually use what we put in, and then finally realize the gains. That seems to be about a 7-year iteration. If you can do it faster, I want to attend your speech and you tell me how you've done it faster and you've shortcut that process, because I'd love to shrink it. But it seems like that's about what it takes us to get all the way through kind of a chapter of our digital journey. I want to highlight a project that happened during the last 7 years. Kiewit built an LNG plant in Louisiana called Calcasieu Pass LNG. Multi-billion-dollar project. I think our total contract was about $5 billion US, if I remember right. 18 trains in this LNG plant. And to that point, the industry had the LNG plants that have been built in the U.S. had been built very traditionally, on-site construction, kind of just-in-time procurement and material management and handling. We took a completely different path. We decided to fabricate the trains off-site, barge them from Texas to Louisiana, offload them onto the project site on crawlers, and set them in place. And all we did on site was connect the system. So piping, electrical, that's it. Everything else we did modularly. We built this plant in record time, had them online and producing LNG before the project date that had been set originally. So they went live early. And it was the fastest deployment of an LNG plant in North America to that point. And so you see pictures here where on the left they've just loaded a module onto a barge at our fabrication yard in Texas. And then you see on site on the right where the crawlers are bringing it in to set it in place. Again, I would tell you there's absolutely no way we could have planned this work. We could have sequenced it the way we did. We could not have taken kind of an industrialized approach to how to build this project. And by the way, that was a differentiator in us winning the project, was that approach. Everybody else had bid it in a very traditional way. They wanted to get online quickly, and this allowed them to do that. So again, it just gives you a sense of what can that technology enable? What can your use of data as a differentiator enable? Well, it's projects like these where we can bring unique approaches to our customers, satisfy their wants and needs in different and differentiating ways. I would tell you again, I don't believe we could have even considered doing it this way had we not been down that digital path. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the future. I'd like to share just a few minutes of where I think we're headed. So the next chapter, the next phase in our digital journey is really all about tech-enabled operations and intelligence. And yes, artificial intelligence is a part of that vision, but it's not the only component. So we want to build on these building blocks of the last two chapters of our digital journey, and now really take a large leap forward, leveraging the data and the data science that we have in place. So the first thing, and by the way, we are in the planning phases right now. I talked about that sort of 7-year horizon. We're in the planning phases now. We are designing these things as we speak. I'm part of a 5-person executive committee appointed by our CEO to go figure out how we're going to do this. And so that is in flight. So what I'm telling you has evolved even since my presentation at Digital Construction Week in June. It has progressed substantially since then, and I've updated the slides accordingly. First thing we're going to do is build a robust machine learning, ops, and automation infrastructure to move from manual processes to as much automation as possible in our business. We want to take as many of the repetitive things that our people do every day out of our operations, automate them, and move our human capital to much more high value things that humans are still much better at than machines are. So think about estimating. Can we produce an estimate at the 60 or 70 or 80% complete level simply by feeding the raw specs of a project and letting the machine progress an estimate to 60, 70, 80% complete? Today, we still do it like we've always done it. We lock a team of people in a room, and they're there for weeks building an estimate from the bottom up. We've built hundreds of bridges in our history, yet we estimate every bridge as if we've never built one before, and we do an estimate from the ground up. We think we can progress those estimates automatically and then let our human beings do what they do best, which is apply reason, apply experience, apply regional knowledge to tweak and refine that estimate to get it to 100%. Think about things like in our engineering and design business, we have about 3,000 design engineers inside of Kiewit. We do the engineering and design for a good chunk of the projects that we end up building, which makes Kiewit relatively unique. We have tons of structures that we lock people in a room to go design manually, bridges, drainage, you name it. I believe we can train machine models to do that, and then put those people on different higher value work that, again, humans do well. And so we're going to take as much manual effort out of the project life cycle. And again, in the name of, can we continue to grow our revenue? Our backlog right now would suggest that we may be a $25 billion company in as little as 2 years. There's that much work to be built in North America. We can't hire enough people to scale linearly to go along that journey. That will become the limiting factor in our ability to grow, is can we get enough good qualified people? So building a platform is the first piece of this that can drive that automation of key aspects of our operations. We want to, well, I talked over this one again. Sorry, I get excited and I get ahead of myself. I apologize. We absolutely want to decouple growth from the work that we do and make that not a linear relationship. And I talked a lot about that, so I'm not going to belabor that point. And then once again, we need to prepare the organization for what is to come. It will be a significant change. I think this might be our greatest change management challenge yet, because we're probably taking things that are most near and dear to our engineers' hearts, maybe why they got into engineering in the first place, and telling them that we're going to automate a lot of that stuff and slide them to what I believe and we believe to be higher value aspects of the work. But they love getting in a room and doing what they do. It's why they went to school. They probably built things in a sandbox when they were kids. It's going to be the toughest change management thing we've done yet. And so we're already talking about and planning how are we going to take the organization on this journey. And the other thing that I didn't mention is we know we want this platform to be intelligent. I can't tell you exactly what that means as I stand here right now. I think an aspect of it will probably be an AI assistant that sits over the top of our project lifecycle data and allows our people to interact with that data differently than they do today. Today, we do pretty traditional querying and search the way you would expect. Tomorrow, I think we should be able to use an AI assistant to ask it deeper and more intelligent questions and have it do the correlations in the background and present different views than we can get to today at the field level. I think that will be a part of it. I don't know entirely yet what else intelligent might mean. And as I said, we are in the planning and design phase as we speak. And so that's no doubt going to continue to evolve. We know we want to leverage AI in some capacity, but we don't want to do it so that we can say we've done it. It's not about being able to tell the public that we're using AI at Kiewit. It's about truly harnessing the power of that technology in meaningful ways to make us better at what we do and how we do it. So more to come there. Maybe I'll have to come back and see y'all again this time next year and give you an update. So we'd like to take that revenue per staff year to 1.6 million or beyond. That would be a staggering almost $5 billion impact to our business. We believe we can continue to narrow job losses. In fact, we're almost moving beyond talking about ending job losses, and we're actually talking about maybe it's margin erosion that we want to track as the key metric. We think we are getting better at avoiding job losses to the point where now we want to talk about not even eroding margin. And so that might be the metric along with revenue per staff year that we track over the next 7 years to see just how successful we've been. But again, we want to be able to grow our business and not have people be the limiting factor. We want to be as wildly profitable as we can, which I think everybody in the industry does, but it's a tough business. And so we're going to leverage technology in every way we can to give us the very best chance to build every project successfully, deliver it on time, don't get anybody hurt while we're doing it, and make a great profit that rewards the effort of our people. So that's the picture. That's where we've been. That's where we are. That's where we're going. It's been a heck of a ride, I will tell you. And again, I'll be happy to share the bumps and the bruises along the way because this hasn't been easy. It hasn't been smooth. And it hasn't always been successful. We've certainly tried things that didn't pan out. So again, challenge me now or at a break. I'm happy to tell you. I'm very transparent. I'll tell you anything you want to know, good or bad. But it's been a journey worth taking. And I think as a company that continues to take on bigger and bigger projects, we're one of maybe a handful in North America that can take on the largest, most complex projects. And by the way, those are now $10 billion projects, $12 billion projects, maybe not the scale that you would see in the Middle East, but from a North American perspective, these are massive, massive projects. The risk associated with those projects is tremendous. We can make a big mistake on $1 billion project, and we are diverse enough and healthy enough financially that we could probably survive that. We really can't probably survive a massive miss on a $10 billion or a $12 billion project. So the ability to leverage technology to know what's happening in our business and avoid that happening is paramount to Kiewit's continued success and frankly, Kiewit's viability on a go-forward basis. That's it. So thank you again. And by the way, I've got a team back in Houston, Texas, part of my organization that's going to be super excited that I'm in the Unity office today. So some of our automation efforts that are already underway, we are using the Unity engine to render and route pipe routing on industrial projects, wire and cable routing. So we can feed raw specs into a automation engine, and then the Unity engine renders it and puts it into the model and auto routes in about an hour the entire pipe structure for a industrial project, for instance, the entire wire and cabling. Also, out the back end, we'll tell you what to order, how much of it to order, in what lengths and segments to order it. Pretty powerful stuff. And that's just kind of a preview of where I think we're headed in the next 7 years as we drive more and more efficiency. Okay, I'll stop. Questions?
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
What a powerful way to show what is possible when you get the foundations right from a digital transformation project. I'm sure we can catch up with Chris over the break for any questions. You can share the inside stories, because I know for any project like that, there are lots of inside stories of blood, sweat, and tears. So what's going to happen now is we're going to break into 2 tracks, track 1 and track 2. So Neil will be the chair for track 2, waving his hand over there. We're going to talk for 25 minutes and then use 5 minutes to swap between the session. So that means 11:05. Yeah. So 11:05 will be tea time. Excellent. So I'll let people choose AI in track 2, and this will be industrialized construction.